Hello everybody, today is the 6th of October on the Flux Dev Meeting. Let's pretty much start as we always start, going through the current backlog. So I'll share my screen quickly. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Yeah, there we go. From the items that were marked towards GA and O, we have pretty much 3 items there. So 2 of them are related to merging the changes for package Git into the respective source controller and image automation controller. So we've done that. We released images for folks to test. Sanskar and I have been working quite a bit on that, especially to make sure that it's working better than before. We're still finding some issues. I put on the agenda items to kind of discuss them, so we'll go back to that in a second. But basically, these changes are already available on the release candidates. You can find in both projects. Sanskar shared the versions, but you can also see that directly here. So this is for the source controller, and then the same kind of thing you can do to find the one for image automation controller. Another thing that we've done recently that we're still working on, and again, we will get back to that, is the libgit 2 version 1.5. So we released a version of the Golang with libgit 2 base image, so we can test it. We're still not 100% sure we'll go ahead with pushing to libgit 2 1.50. We're still testing, but as I said, we'll get back to that as part of the agenda for today. On the general backlog, there are a few other items there. So a few things around the build, the fix of the dashboard. I think we discussed this maybe two dev meetings ago. So before, we would not inform things outside of Go. So especially for source controller and image automation controller, the dashboard might not, sometimes would not report the correct memory usage. So that's fixed now. Let's open these other 3 so we can quickly go through them as well. So regex to support ECR as OCI ham registry. Oh yeah, so that is more changed to the regex, so you can actually support this as a URL. So that is done. I don't think we released that yet.
We did.
Oh, we did that. Is that on what version? On the latest we released last week, right?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, this is. Yeah, this is recent. We haven't released this yet. It's just a big bug fix. And yeah, so this is a new generic webhook provider, which allows you to pretty much sign the webhooks with a HMAC, pretty much. So that as well, I think, was merged. When was it merged? Was merged this week. So this was not released yet. Yeah, so this was merged yesterday. Cool. Anything else folks wants to talk about what happened in the last, since the last dev meeting that was not on the board? Cool. So let's carry on. In terms of, again, like GA focus PRs, if there is anything that you've done that you require some reviews and still, like you're waiting for a while, please add them into the list here and ping us so we can prioritize them over other stuff. Cool. So the first agenda item for today is around the Git changes. So as I mentioned before, there's quite a few things that we're working right now. So one of them is around testing libgit2 version 1.5. So basically, when we go to the upstream project, the version that is actively maintained is the 1.5. All the bug fixes, feature improvements, and so on, are targeting that. Versions like the one that we're using at the minute, which is the 1.3, they are pretty much just security fixes. The problem with moving to 1.5 is that Git2Go, which is the wrapper we use, or the Go bindings project we use, only recently migrated to that, and was with a change from Sanskar, and this is not really well tested across other users, which is a bit of a problem. So for example, yesterday I opened an issue there to highlight that the version that they released that supported 1.5 was actually not working at all. So they fixed that by releasing a new version, which is v34, as opposed to the version that they released before, which was the v35. And on top of that, again, we have a lot of inconsistencies when it comes down to libgit2 and git2go. So what we'll be doing is testing quite a bit this version before we fully commit to it. On my initial tests and some of the tests from Sanskar as well, it feels like it hasn't so far made things worse. In some specific cases, it feels like the panics that we're experiencing on the intermittent crashes are taking longer to take place. So far it's looking good, but until we test this for at least a few more days, we can't really commit to it. So there are quite a few PRs to migrate into 1.5. None of them are merged yet, and they won't be until all these tests are gone through. But again, just wanted to raise this and make sure that everyone is aware. Another point within the Git changes is intermittent panics. So we have a few things such as this, which is Git remote fetch. I'm not sure if this other one here is on the same place, but basically I observed panics in 3 locations pretty much. So one is the fetch, the other one is this Git repository init, another one is tree checkout, if I'm not mistaken, and they might happen within like half an hour, maybe 1 hour of execution on my current setup. But in some cases, it might take days for them to actually take place. We have a few ideas of what could be triggering this, but nothing so far, at least on my setup, really fixed it. Some of these issues are happening on the production versions, not only on the ones that we, with the change that we're working on at a minute. The only difference is in some cases they are happening more often on the released versions than on the RC versions. So yeah, this is one of the problems we're trying to iron out before we actually finish merging all these changes. Is there anything you want to talk about this, Sanskar, about the intermittent crashes?
No, I mean, we discovered that it might be due to some bugs in Git2Go, as in like they wouldn't, like you have to do a lot of special things when dealing with Cgo, and during GC, maybe that memory was being invalidated before it should have been invalidated, and that's why it was crashing. That is one theory. So, but like we can only test that once we like apply those fixes and see whether it actually fixes them. Other than that, yeah, the as Paulo said, the new libgit 2 version does seem to be much more stable. On my setup, the crashes have gone down like significantly. They haven't disappeared 100%, but uh, it's relatively stable. So
Yeah, and again, like we have some issues with this, well, tackling those panics at least, because ideally all the changes that we're doing here would be merged upstream. Some of the changes we submitted upstream were merged, but it's not always the case. So we have a fork for that right now. But yeah, we don't want to actually have to put too many things that are just on our setup. Otherwise, it will just be harder and harder for us to manage this over time. But yeah, we're going through the panics. We're testing, doing loads of like long running tests on both source controller and image automation controller. And the images that Sanskar shared earlier on this week, I think, would be good if other folks were testing as well, just to see if there's anything else that we haven't seen. Because again, we want to merge this into Main as soon as possible. Another point within the changes that we actively working on is an investigation around GoGit memory leaks. So especially on Sanskar setup, he observed that with GoGit and the new changes, over a period of time, he starts observing memory leaks. It's not substantial in terms of how much memory increases. If I'm not mistaken, every 2 hours, it was like 5 megabytes. Is that correct?
every 12 hours is like 10 megabytes, something like that.
Oh yes, yeah. So it's even worse to track. So it's 5 megabytes every 6 hours, 10 every 12. I haven't managed to reproduce that on my setup yet, especially because I'm tracking a lot of things on the libgit 2. So it would be good if folks could use the images that we shared, and see if you experience similar things. What I'll do is I'll actually put on the agenda the actual images, the RC images, so other folks can have a look on that. Cool. So these are the main things around the Git changes. I am creating an issue just to highlight all the things that are outstanding for us to be happy with, merging the Git refactoring work into Main. There's not much stuff, but the stuff that is out, especially like these investigations on panics and memory leaks, they are really time consuming and they take a very long time to actually be 100% sure that changes improved. So yeah, we'll be working through them on the coming days. Is there any questions around like the Git changes, what we have within that space, and or even like why we're doing this? If not, I'll just go ahead to the next item. So I'll take that as a yes. All right, so a while ago, maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we talked about having a change freeze, especially to focus on GA. I'm not sure in which meeting and to what extent we covered the idea of having a release candidate for GA, maybe in October, maybe in November. But yeah, there's some ideas about doing that, working towards GA, getting RC out, and be able to kind of get to GA sooner rather than later. So the first thing that I wanted to ask, and actually, across the core maintainers, is to what point, to what extent we want to enforce a change freeze, because I noticed that we actually released quite a few features since we defined a change freeze, and how we would track a RC. Like, are we going to create a new branch, and then everything that is coming for to this RC will just kind of merge into this branch and hold that completely separate to main? Or, you know, like, anyone has any kind of suggestion, ideas around how to tackle that?
RC for what? Source controller?
Well, the idea was across the changes we're doing for, you know, image controller, image automation controller and source controller, but pretty much targeting GA. So what we're doing for that, because at the minute we released an RC just for the Git refactoring changes, and that's just those specific things. So, but going towards trying to lock down a GA version, how would we tackle versioning? Like, are we going to do that on main, and anything else, bug fixes and stuff, we're going to do separately on specific branches, or we just keep as we are, and then if we need to do different, you know, releases, and all, we just kind of cherry pick versions?
So for Flux GA release candidates, I will just do what we do today, and instead of bumping the minor version, we'll do RC1, RC2, RC3, whatever.
All right, and what would we do with features that not necessarily are targeted to GA, for example? We'll still go into main, and through this RCs that will just be included as a byproduct.
Yeah. Features, as in fixes. What features?
No, like new features. So imagine that a new contributor picks up a good new, you know, issue, a good first issue, provides a PR. We decide it's good enough, we merge it. Would that go in between, or shall we freeze features that are not going to GA right now and just focus solely on GA stuff?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can deal with new features until we do GA. What features would you have in mind? I mean,
well, what I mean,
big
like,
things have to go through an RFC that takes, OCI took 6 months. So
no, I mean, even smaller things. So for example, you know, some things around OCI, we still adding new features in parallel to the effort on GA. So is there a specific scope, for example, within OCI that is targeting GA, or are we just, you know, working on OCI as much as it needs to until GA? Like, is there a specific scope on that right now?
So in my opinion, what we are currently missing from all the OCI things before GA is having cosine verification for Helm charts. But besides that, I will not get any more OCI features in until we reach GA.
Yeah, it would be good for us to
also, just
What
sorry,
about-
Paulo, we also have the insecure flag for cosine verification.
Sure, there's
I
more of
think-
a bug fix than a feature.
Yeah, it's coming as well.
Yeah, because I think it would be good for us to start having the visibility. Like, if we're really truly in a change freeze, it would be good to understand all the things that are included in that, like what we're actually delivering on J. I think there is still a few things within API that we need to discuss that probably should make its way to J. And that is part of like other topics that I'll probably bring on the next session. But overall, things that we know for a fact that are going to J, if we are truly in a change freeze, it would be good to understand what those things are. So from OCI perspective, do we have issues for all of those?
Yeah, so besides
You too.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, the two that Stefan mentioned, yeah, we have issues with them.
And that's the insecure HTTP issue, right?
Yeah, I can tag them on the J if you want.
Yeah, it would be good, especially for us to have an idea what we're tackling for J and what we know. All right, so pretty much we keep as we are going, then everything merges into main once they're ready, and the only difference is when we do a release, we just tag a different thing. And what if we have like security fixes, then we'll just cherry pick from the previous version and just do a security fix in between.
Yeah, we bump the RC version if there is a security fix.
Yeah,
So
no,
let
but
me-
it's especially for previous versions that are not related to the RC. So on the RC, we would, but we don't actually need to fix the in the same way that we've fixed the released versions. But for the released versions, we would need to backport already, right? Any
No.
security fix.
Why would we do that?
Well, the release cycle for the GA might take months. Are we telling people to go for an RC in production right away?
Of course, if they are running 0 something, why wouldn't they run RC? RC
So
would be...
on that point, what's the point in calling it RC then?
I don't know, to showcase stability or whatever. It's a marketing, right?
Yeah, because for me, if you have a minor that you're already using production, and then all of a sudden you're telling me to go to an RC, it feels like I'm going back in stability, not going forwards in stability.
Well, Paolo, check out the Semver example that I put in the chat. I think it denotes certainly a step up in instability from a major version 0.
All right, so we would put a version V1 then.
Yeah, that's usually how we would do it. Is like you would say something like if you wanted to go for from let's say one major release to another major release, you would then say like, alpha. Yeah, exactly, Stefan. Thanks. Yeah, like alpha 1. Yes, yeah, the dot. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the alpha 1, beta 1, RC 1, or whatever. And before as a preamble to the main, to that tag.
So from a Semver perspective, V0 35.0 and V 2.0 minus RC.1, they're equivalent. They're both pre-releases.
Yeah, on that case, yeah, we just need to make sure we contact the community and all, like, especially for folks that are using like image automation controller to update things and so on, as that will have an impact and all. but cool.
Can't use
No one will
image
use image
automation
update
control for
automation to
Flux.
Oh, sorry,
upgrade Flux.
how was that?
No one uses image update automation to upgrade Flux. No one can.
Yeah, that's impossible.
Unless we started releasing OCI artifacts that are
Like CRG and stuff, yeah. Cool. All right. On that case, we're then just doing everything on main then from now on.
Yeah, we can definitely. So if, let's say, someone opens a pull request, adds a new API, we are going to say, hey, new APIs have to go through RFCs and so on. So for those kind of, huge changes that we don't want to take into GA, we have a clear path for that. Now, let's say someone makes a pull request and adds some field to some API, which may feel like a small change, but the code changes are enormous. We'll reply on that and say, we have put this on hold. We have to, I don't know, add the label to all our repos, and put that on hold until after GA and explain to people we cannot take in such, huge changes because that will make the GA, the whole thing unstable, right? I'm not for, merging them and do all the refactoring in separate branches and have a main which is unstable and it will be there for months. I don't think that's okay. We need to decide when to do the first RC. Ideally, the first RC release should come with the beta 2 APIs everywhere. But I don't know, how far are we with image automation? How far are we with Helm controller?
In terms of rewrites.
Yeah. So beta 2 means the image, all the image custom resource definitions will be V1 beta 2 and Helm release will be V2 beta 2. Those are the only API left on beta 1. Can we do that by the end of the month? I've seen that Sunny almost finished the image reflector, but we still have image automation. And we need to release them both at the same time. And of course, Helm controller.
Do you guys want to talk about that, as Sunny did?
Another thing I want to make note of is that before we release RCs, the customized controller still has a lot of public APIs within the controllers package, which needs to be moved out.
Yeah.
I find it hard to provide an estimate because the last weeks I've been distracted by OCI things being moved. I've been distracted by gating proposals. So for me, it's really hard to say like, okay, I'm going to spend this amount of time on it and I will be done, because there will be a lot coming on my path that I can't prepare for. That has shrunk down due to OCI being almost completed, but I think Sunny has had the same experiences. So that makes it difficult in a way. Although
there is still the Helm chart verification, so that will still require
but that's
to review it.
Yeah, exactly. But compared to the size of the OCI feature itself, that's quite a minor change. So yeah, I really hope to reach the end of the month, so to say, because otherwise it will be prolong and prolong and prolong. On the other hand, I've talked with Sunny this morning about the some of the image work, I think, and I think it's on good track. So it's kind of well, with KubeCon, of course, also as a distraction. That's one thing I forgot about.
Yeah, especially with the KubeCon, I think not even going to the API parts, but like on the Git, I think we really cutting it really thinly to get it done by the end of the month. On the other controllers, so in terms of the RC1, what exactly we include in that? The idea is to have, let me just put that on a different one, yeah, would be the changes on the Helm controller, and then on the two image controllers, right? Image automation and image reflector, whenever that is done, right? Is that what we're saying? And the Git changes.
Yeah, and then there are two other nodes that I think should be taken into account because the programmatic APIs will become semi-stable. Is that the notification controller needs to export certain annotations it makes use of within events to keep track of revisions and such, because these are hard-coded throughout code bases at the moment without having a clear definition of how they work, or even some constant which exports them as being part of the notification or part of the official notification control API. That's one. Then the second one is that the customized controller is fairly well tested, and it's also well kind of separated into service kind of elements, but everything is stashed into one package. I would very much like to see that either being moved to internal so that it doesn't become part of some publicly available machinery, or it being even divided into sub packages, because the services themselves provide clear boundaries on what the controller should be capable of. And I think that will also have the benefit in the future that it will be easier to test things at a certain level instead of testing everything at the controller's end, which is quite a pain.
Yeah, so we have these structs and functions, but the tests are for everything are based on the reconciliation loop. So this can't be moved to anything else but here.
Which thing?
Unless, so most tests for, I don't know, fetcher or decryptor or whatever are looking at the require reconciliation to run the whole reconciler.
Oh, I thought that while I was making changes to the decryptor, at least added some tests at the are you sure?
Yeah, I'm looking at generator.
I think they might depend partly on the test end, but not on the. So I also have that in a new Helm controller code, and what I do then is basically that I stage a test end for every sub package. Although in the Helm controller, due to the test becoming more simple, I could get away a lot with just using a fake client over using a full-blown cluster, because a lot of the things you're doing is based, or the testing you're doing at level is based on mockery and not on moving parts, basically. Yeah, I see it for the decryptor now. Also because it tests the events, etc.
Yep. Also variable substitution, all the server side apply stuff is nothing of this can be mocked. Especially server side, that's
Yeah, but then you could still say like we move it into a package and then we inject the test env into that package and then the package becomes this. I mean, that's not very different from what's being done for the reconciler now.
I mean, you are proposing to move the controllers directory in internal or what?
No, although I've seen projects do that, I'm not proposing this. What I'm proposing is that the kind of services that are available in the controller's code right now, so the decryptor kind of thing that is a thing on its own, and I think there may be another 2 to 3 things that. Oh, substitute variables is just a plain function. Okay. Fetcher. Yeah, so the artifact fetcher I would move somewhere else. The decryptor I would move to its own kind of thing. I can't go easily through. The impersonation kind of thing I would move out of the controller's code. No, that's tied to the reconciler. Basically, all the APIs that are standing by itself, so not attached to the reconciler, I would move out of the controller's code into internals, and so that the API and the constructors they also expose, so new blah blah blah, are no longer publicly available, because it's both weird that they are seen as part of the controllers at the moment, as it's weird that they are part of the I can't say this. Yeah, but Soleil, that's going one step further than what I'm proposing, because then you would have to think of how to fit it into the customized package. My main concern is that it doesn't become part of the publicly exposed API so that other people are suddenly depending on it. That's what I want to prevent, because then you have to maintain it until you reach the version 2. And you can easily do that by simply moving it into internals and keeping things as they are, and simply moving the test and then ensuring that the further environment for the test is still set up on the level of the package. But other than that, it should be fairly easy to copy paste.
No, all the tests have to be rewritten because I wrote the test from an events and status perspective. So how I wrote all these tests here are run reconciler, then look in the inventory. Is the inventory matching what I'm expecting, which is a substatus resource? Then look at ready status. Then capture all the events and see that events are in the right order with the right messages and everything. Without the controller, it's impossible to test any of that. So everything has to be rewritten in terms of tests.
No, right? Because the decryptor still has its own test, which work with a client for some reason, because it needs to get secrets, but as long as you state those secrets, it should just work fine. It's not depending on any of the moving parts. Same for the fetcher, also not move depending on. Oh, it's creating namespaces though, but.
Also, the decryptor creates a Flux customization. It does eventually, okay, check the checksum, look at events, look at what has been applied on the cluster itself. It gets all the things decrypted from the cluster and compares it with what's expected. Some tests do, some tests not, I don't know. Import keys that can be moved, but the thing that tests that what we create in cluster is not altered from the unencrypted version, that depends on the main reconciler. Yeah, so there are, I don't know, 5,000-6,000 lines of code around tests that have to be rewritten in a form or another to move it out. Then if we move it out, we test way less things. We cannot just delete all the events test and then, so we have to add them back in the main reconciliation test.
Yeah, or you keep them there and then you start making use of the structures and other things from the internal package and keep the tests on that level. And then start adding tests on the package level until you have doubled the coverage. And then you can take a look at what you can remove from the controller's code. My main concern, I don't care about the test staying put as long as the public bits are away from the, or at least as the private mechanics basically are away from the public API as they are now. That's my main concern. I mean, if you can get around it by keeping the tests in controller so that they continue to test the functionalities while changing the import paths to some internal package, then I'm also fine with it. But
what if we lowercase everything? Wouldn't that solve it? Instead of
then you're going to have for the next 4 years private structures everywhere, which no one is going to take care of. And I'm hoping by taking the first step of at least creating separation on a package level that people will be more careful about where they add things and think about more about structuring things. Whereas if you do that and make everything private, I'm very much afraid that people will continue to add things to the controller's code, which will only make this problem grow instead of it going away.
Yeah, I'm not against moving it. I would say it will take half a year to do it properly.
No, I don't think it will take half a year.
I mean,
Yeah, to do it properly. Yeah, no. But I don't think it will take half a year to move the to keep the test there, then move the code into separated packages. I don't know, the crypto package, whatever. And then you keep the test there. Then you just say import from internal, continue to have the tests, and then just start moving. I would probably add some simple tests on the package level, but keep the rich test coverage on the controller side for now. But at least have that separation, because then if people start to add functionalities, they start thinking in boxes instead of thinking about how they kind of fit it into the already very procedural kind of and lengthy bits of code. And I think that will be better than now going for the easy way and making everything private and then continuing to have the problem that there is no separation, basically. So my proposal would be just move the bits out, continue to have the test there if there is a reason to, and then just change the import paths to internal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the decryptor, some of the other tests, besides the reconcile test, I think, can simply be moved to the package. They don't really seem to do much with the actual cluster, I think.
Okay.
If I may add to something else, Flux Dev is using the Flux package customized package. And as it is today, when we have new features or we change the code on the decryptor on the variable substitution in customized controller, the code base is diverging from what is in Flux package customized. At some point, we might have like Flux Dev is not behaving the same than the customized controller when it's come to those bits.
Yeah, the issue is that you've used the newer var sub package, which breaks a lot of things.
Yeah.
So for us to actually use this in the controller, we have to pin it to the controller version.
We could do that.
M sub is on a very different version than what the controller does.
Okay.
So
Well, I will
That's-
have a look.
that's the main reason I couldn't use the packaging in the controller.
Okay.
Also, the tests are failing and everything. So because it's a does substitution differently, and there are so many users relying on substitution. I'm not for breaking what they're doing right
Okay.
now. So yeah, we can get rid of, if you fix that and the version is the same, that the behavior is the same, then we get rid of 3 things from the controllers, but there are still other 4 things left.
Okay, I will.
Decryptor, ACLs, generator, inventory, prune, validation, health checking, all of this.
All of it fails, or all of it is different?
No, none of all of these are in controllers, and like Hide said, we should move them out.
Ah, okay.
But I didn't wrote tests in a way that can be moved with the test as well. So we can only move the structs and the functions attached to the struct pointer, then write other tests, which don't look at events, status, what's happening in the cluster. Should be a way different way of testing. I don't know how. Can you test, I don't know, how you wait on resources if you don't actually have a Kubernetes? You have a mock thing, but I'm guessing you patch the pods, ready status, and all of that. But yeah, it's a lot of work.
Cool. I will create an issue for that that we can track and tag that for GA. And yeah, if we can break that down into smaller chunks, maybe that could be helpful. Anything else folks want to talk about the scope for RC1 in terms of notes? I only put that, it's the Helm controller work, the image automation and image reflector controller rewrite, and the git changes.
Customize controller rewrite.
Okay, so that would be for RC1 as well.
Yeah, we need to get case status in there.
Okay.
I would like to propose something. I don't know, should be RC1 or something. We need to get the Git proxy changes done. So like every Git repository object should provide a proxy field, a proxy address field where users can say that please use this proxy. So right now it's only possible at a controller level using environment variables, but we should provide that at an object level. So the main logic, I have it. We need to get that merged upstream in package upstream, and then then change the API to have that field. I don't know if that should be tried against RC1 or a future RC, but yeah.
So this is to have like notification controller has a proxy field in the spec, right?
Yeah.
So each custom resource can specify its own proxy and so on that will override any proxy set through environments, variables,
Yes.
in source controller. So right now we support proxies, but as a whole, not for each custom resource,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And these fields will be optional. So
Yes.
I'm not sure if we should.
So given the issues that we're having with GoGit, for us to be able to mitigate the memory issue, we are seriously considering to get a GoGit fork as well, in the same way that we have the Git2Go, so we can actually mitigate the issues and merge, and be able to work with a valid fork that is from Fluxity until they get merged upstream. So the idea here was pretty much to kind of ask for that fork to be created, unless there are strong opinions against it.
Yeah, let's fork it. We did it with Git2Go, so
Cool, brilliant. Can you
is even worse, in a worse situation, right?
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Do you mind doing that for us then, and just sharing the? Cool. Brilliant. All right, I'll tie down the action item around bringing the topic again up next week, but we'll cover that well after this. We run out of time, so thank you very much. Welcome back, Stefan, again, and see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.